Hello everyone and welcome back to English Flow Podcast. I'm so glad you're here today because we're going to talk about something that every English learner dreams about but often finds incredibly challenging. We're going to explore how to think in English. Not just speak English, not just understand English, but actually think in English. You know that moment when you're trying to have a conversation and there's this tiny delay? That split second where your brain is translating from your native language into English. Today, we're going to learn how to eliminate that delay and start thinking directly in English, just like a native speaker does. Let me start by asking you something. Have you ever been in the middle of a conversation in English and felt like your brain was working overtime? You know what you want to say in your native language, but then you have to translate it word by word into English. And by the time you've finished translating in your head, the conversation has already moved on to a different topic. It's frustrating, isn't it? This is what I call the translation trap, and almost every English learner gets stuck in it at some point. The problem isn't that you don't know enough English. The problem is that your brain is still using your native language as the bridge to English. But here's the exciting part. Thinking in English is absolutely a skill you can develop, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. Before we dive into the how, let's talk about why this is so important. When you think in English, three amazing things happen. First, your speaking becomes faster and more fluent. There's no translation delay, so words just flow naturally. Second, your comprehension improves dramatically. You start understanding English directly without that mental translation process slowing you down. And third, and this is perhaps the most exciting part, you start to actually feel like an English speaker. English stops being this foreign, difficult thing and starts becoming a natural part of who you are. It becomes second nature. That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? To make English feel as natural as your native language. So how do we actually start thinking in English? The first step is beautifully simple. Start narrating your daily activities in English inside your head. I know this might sound a bit silly at first, but trust me, this is incredibly powerful. When you wake up in the morning, instead of thinking in your native language, try thinking, I'm waking up. I need to brush my teeth. What should I wear today? When you're making breakfast, think to yourself, I'm making coffee. I'm toasting bread. This smells delicious. The key here is to start simple. Don't try to form complex philosophical thoughts in English right away. Just describe what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. Think of it like this. You're teaching your brain to default to English for everyday thoughts. And the beautiful thing about this method is that you can practice it anytime, anywhere, without anyone even knowing you're doing it. Now, here's where many learners make a mistake. They try to think in complicated sentences right away, and then they get frustrated when they can't do it. Remember, even native speakers think in simple sentences most of the time. We don't walk around thinking in perfectly constructed academic paragraphs. So give yourself permission to think simply. Instead of trying to think something like, I need to contemplate whether the weather conditions will necessitate carrying an umbrella, just think, should I bring an umbrella? It might rain. See the difference. Simple, direct, natural. As you practice more and more, your thoughts will naturally become more complex. But start where you are. Start simple. There's no shame in that. In fact, that's exactly how children learn to think in their native language. Here's where it gets really interesting. Start using English when you're making decisions or planning your day. When you're thinking about what to eat for lunch, don't think in your native language and then translate. Think directly in English. What do I want for lunch? Maybe pizza. No, I had pizza yesterday. How about a salad? When you're planning your day, think, okay, first I need to go to the bank, then I'll buy groceries, then I'll study English for an hour. This is powerful because planning and decision-making are active mental processes. When you start doing these in English, you're training your brain to actually use English as a thinking tool, not just a communication tool. You're making English functional in your mind. And the more functional it becomes, the more natural it feels. We all have that voice in our heads, right? That internal dialogue that comments on everything we do, that asks us questions, that sometimes even argues with us. Well, here's your challenge. Start having that internal dialogue in English. When something funny happens, instead of laughing and commenting in your native language, think, that was hilarious, or, I can't believe that just happened. When you make a mistake, instead of scolding yourself in your native language, think, "Oops, I messed up. It's okay, I'll do better next time." This might feel strange at first, and you might even feel like you're pretending or playing a role. But that's completely normal. You're creating a new mental habit, and all new habits feel awkward at the beginning. Stick with it. The awkwardness will fade, and eventually, this English-speaking voice in your head will feel completely natural. This is a tough one, but it's crucial. Whenever you catch yourself thinking in your native language and then translating to English, stop. Just stop right there. Back up and try to think that same thought directly in English from the beginning. Yes, this will slow you down at first. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. But this is how you break the translation habit. It's like any bad habit. You have to consciously catch yourself doing it and consciously choose to do something different. Over time, your brain will get better at skipping the native language step altogether. You're literally rewiring your neural pathways. Every time you choose to think directly in English instead of translating, you're making that English pathway in your brain a little bit stronger. This is where thinking in English becomes really deep and meaningful. Start reacting to things emotionally in English. When you're happy, think, "I'm so happy right now," or "This is amazing." When you're frustrated, think, "This is so annoying," or "I can't deal with this right now." When you're surprised, think, "Wow, I didn't expect that," or "No way, that's incredible." Emotions are one of the most fundamental parts of human experience, and when you start experiencing them in English, something magical happens. English stops being just a language you learned and starts becoming a language you live in. This is the difference between speaking English and living in English. And living in English is what makes you truly fluent. Here's something important I need you to understand. When you're thinking in English, don't worry about perfect grammar. Native speakers don't think in grammatically perfect sentences. We think in fragments, in incomplete thoughts, in sometimes grammatically messy ways. That's completely normal and okay. If you're thinking, "Where are my keys?" instead of "Where are my keys?" that's fine. You're still thinking in English. Don't let perfectionism stop you from practicing. The grammar will improve naturally over time as you expose yourself to more correct English through reading, listening, and speaking. But when you're just thinking to yourself, give yourself complete freedom to make mistakes. No one is grading your thoughts. This is your private mental practice space. Use it freely. Reading is one of the most powerful tools for learning to think in English, and here's why. When you read in English, especially when you read extensively, you start to absorb the natural patterns of English thought. You're seeing how English speakers structure ideas, how they move from one thought to another, what words and phrases they use naturally. Start with something at your level. Maybe it's simple short stories, maybe it's news articles, maybe it's blogs or social media posts. The key is to read without translating. Don't look up every word in the dictionary. Try to understand from context. Let the English wash over you and seep into your brain. The more you read, the more English patterns become familiar, and the easier it becomes to think in those patterns yourself. You're essentially downloading English thinking patterns into your mind. Here's a really effective technique that many successful language learners use. Instead of thinking of a word in your native language and then translating it to English, try to associate English words directly with images or concepts. For example, when you think of a dog, don't think of the word for dog in your native language and then translate it to dog. Instead, picture an actual dog and directly connect that image with the English word dog. This cuts out the translation middleman. You're building direct connections between concepts and English words. The same goes for actions and feelings. When you think about running, visualize someone running and connect that image with the word run. When you feel happy, connect that emotion directly with the English word happy. This takes practice, but it's incredibly effective for eliminating translation. If you're comfortable with this, and you're in a private space, take your internal English monologue and make it external. Talk to yourself out loud in English. Describe what you're doing, comment on things around you, ask yourself questions and answer them. Okay, so I'm going to make dinner now. What do I need? I need onions, tomatoes, and chicken. Where did I put the cutting board? Oh, there it is. This does two things. First, it reinforces the thinking in English habit because you're actually producing the language, not just thinking it. And second, it helps you get comfortable with the sound and rhythm of English. You're hearing yourself speak English, and that helps your brain recognize English as something natural and normal coming from you. If you feel silly doing this, remember that many successful language learners do this exact practice. Thinking in English becomes much easier when you're constantly surrounded by English. Watch movies and TV shows in English, listen to English podcasts like this one, watch YouTube videos in English, listen to English music. The more English you consume, the more your brain starts to default to English. It's like when you visit a foreign country. After a few days, you start dreaming in that language, right? That's because your brain has been so immersed in it. You can create that same immersion without leaving your home. Make English a constant presence in your life. When you're cooking, play an English podcast. When you're exercising, listen to English music. When you're relaxing, watch something in English. Gradually, your brain will start to think in the language it's constantly hearing. Wherever you are right now, look around you and describe what you see in English. In your mind or out loud if you're alone, say things like, I see a blue chair. There's a window with white curtains. The light is coming through the window. There's a plant on the table. It looks healthy. This is fantastic practice because it trains your brain to process visual information directly into English. You're not translating descriptions. You're creating original English descriptions of what you observe. Try to do this every day in different places. Describe your bedroom, your kitchen, your office, the street you're walking on, the cafe you're sitting in. Make it a game. See how detailed you can get. The more you practice this, the more naturally your brain will start creating English descriptions of everything around you. This is a simple but powerful trick. Change the language on your phone, your computer, your apps, everything to English. First, this might slow you down a little bit, but here's what happens. Every time you use your devices, which is probably dozens or hundreds of times a day, you're seeing English. You're interacting with English. Your brain starts to associate everyday actions with English words and phrases. When you want to save something, you see save in English. When you want to delete something, you see delete in English. These repeated exposures add up, and they help your brain start defaulting to English for everyday concepts. Plus, you'll learn a lot of useful, practical vocabulary that you actually use in daily life. Here's a powerful nighttime practice. Before you go to sleep, review your day in English. Lie in bed and think through what you did that day, but think about it entirely in English. Today I woke up at 7. Had breakfast. I went to work. At work I had a meeting. The meeting was interesting. After work I went to the gym. Feel tired now. Tomorrow I need to remember to call my friend. This practice does something really special. It reinforces English as the language of your personal narrative. You're telling your own story to yourself in English, and that makes English deeply personal. It's no longer just a language you use with others. It becomes the language of your inner life. And that's when fluency really happens. I need to be honest with you about something. Learning to think in English doesn't happen overnight. It's not like flipping a switch where suddenly you're thinking in perfect English all the time. It's a gradual process. At first, you might think in English for a few seconds, then slip back into your native language. That's completely normal. Don't get discouraged. The key is consistency, not perfection. Even if you only manage to think in English for 5 minutes today, that's 5 minutes more than yesterday. And tomorrow maybe it'll be 6 minutes, then 7, then 10. Gradually, those English thinking moments will get longer and longer until one day you realize you've been thinking in English for hours without even noticing. That's the goal. And you will get there if you keep practicing. Let me quickly share some common mistakes that learners make when trying to think in English. First, don't force yourself to think in English about complex topics too early. If you're trying to think about quantum physics or philosophy in English before you can think about making breakfast in English, you're setting yourself up for frustration. Build gradually. Second, don't translate idioms literally from your native language. English has its own idioms and expressions. Learn those and use those instead. Third, don't punish yourself for slipping back into your native language. It's going to happen. Just gently redirect yourself back to English. And fourth, don't wait until your grammar is perfect to start thinking in English. Start now wherever you are. The practice itself will improve your grammar. You know what's really exciting? There comes a moment, different for everyone, where thinking in English just clicks. You'll be doing something ordinary like making coffee or walking down the street, and you'll suddenly realize that you've been thinking entirely in English without even trying. Without forcing it. Without translating. Just happen naturally. That moment is absolutely incredible. It's like a breakthrough, a revelation. And once you experience it once, it becomes easier and easier to access that state. You've proven to yourself that you can do it. Your brain knows it's possible. And from that moment on, thinking in English becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural option that's always available to you. So here's my challenge for you today. As soon as this podcast ends, start narrating what you're doing in English. For the next 10 minutes, try to think only in English. Describe your surroundings, comment on how you feel, plan what you're going to do next, all in English. Just 10 minutes. If you slip into your native language, no problem. Just gently come back to English. Do this every day. Make it a habit like brushing your teeth. And I promise you, in a few weeks, you'll notice a difference. In a few months, you'll be amazed at your progress. Thinking in English is not some magical ability that only gifted people have. It's a skill, and like any skill, you can develop it through practice and patience. Remember, every fluent English speaker you admire went through this exact same process. They all had to train their brains to think in English. You're not alone in this. You're on a path that millions of successful English learners have walked before you. And you can absolutely do this. Believe in you. Thank you so much for listening to English Flow Podcast. If you found this helpful, please share it with other English learners who might benefit from it. And I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep practicing, keep thinking in English, and keep flowing. Bye for now.